The massive holographic display flickered to life in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, casting an eerie blue glow across the faces of representatives from 47 different species. Ambassador Zethkar of the Valdorian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes, his 6 eyes focusing intently on the human delegation seated in the far corner of the chamber. The humans looked so ordinary, so fragile compared to the towering Krillian warriors or the ethereal Nexari energy beings that surrounded them. Order! Order! The council speaker's voice boomed through universal translators, each species hearing it in their native tongue. We are gathered here today to address the human question once and for all. Dr. Sarah Chun, Earth's lead ambassador, straightened in her chair. Her calm demeanor masked the tension she felt as hundreds of alien eyes turned toward her small delegation. Beside her, General Marcus Kane remained stoic, his military bearing unmistakable even in civilian clothes. The third member of their group, Dr. Elena Vasquez, quietly observed the proceedings while making notes on her tablet. "The evidence is overwhelming," Zethkar announced, rising to his full 8-foot height. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Humanity has consistently rejected our proposals for technological integration. They refuse to share their research data. They decline to participate in joint military exercises. Most concerning of all, they continue to develop weapons technology in isolation." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Saurian representative's scales shifted color from green to deep purple, indicating agitation. The insectoid Zephyrians clicked their mandibles in what their species considered disapproval. Dr. Chen stood slowly, her movements deliberate and measured. "Honored representatives, Earth has never refused cooperation. We have simply requested time to evaluate the terms of each proposal on its own merits. Our caution stems from our unique history and the lessons learned from centuries of conflict on our own world." Caution. The Nexari delegate's energy form pulsed with indignation. "You speak of caution while your species continues to militarize at an unprecedented rate. Our intelligence networks report the construction of massive orbital defense platforms, the development of new weapon systems, and the mobilization of your entire industrial capacity toward military purposes." General Kane's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Earth's military preparations were no secret, but hearing them discussed so openly in this forum felt like an invasion of privacy. The Krillian war chief, a being whose name roughly translated to stone render of enemies, slammed his massive fist on his delegation's table. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Enough words. The humans prepare for war while speaking of peace. This is the behavior of a species that cannot be trusted. They are dangerous, unpredictable, and must be contained before they threaten galactic stability." Dr. Chen's expression didn't change, but those who knew her well would have recognized the slight narrowing of her eyes as a warning sign. "War Chief, with respect, your own species has been involved in 17 conflicts over the past century. The Valdorians have subjugated 6 different worlds in the name of peaceful integration. The Saurians maintain a military force that outnumbers Earth population 3-1. Yet somehow, humanity's defensive preparations are the threat to galactic peace." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over one another in dozens of languages. The Zephyrians' clicking became a cacophony, while the Nexari began to strobe with agitated light patterns. Through it all, the human delegation remained seated and calm, watching the proceedings with careful attention. Silence. The council speaker's voice cut through the noise. Gradually, order returned to the chamber. "Ambassador Chun, your points are noted, but they do not address the core concern. Every other species in this galaxy has accepted the principle of collective security. We share technology, coordinate military responses, and work together for the common good. Humanity alone insists on maintaining independence. This isolation is not sustainable." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Speaker, you speak of collective security, but what you describe sounds more like collective dependence. When the Zoltharian plague threatened 3-star systems, it was human medical researchers working independently who developed the cure. When the Void Reapers attacked the Outer Rim, our isolated defense platforms provided the early warning that saved millions of lives. Perhaps our independence is not a weakness, but a strength that benefits everyone. The Valdorian ambassador's expression grew cold. You speak as if humanity has some special role to play in galactic affairs. This arrogance is exactly what we feared when your species first achieved faster-than-light travel. You believe you are superior to the rest of us. Not superior, Dr. Chen replied calmly, different. Our evolutionary path diverged from yours long ago. Where your species developed natural weapons, enhanced strength, or energy manipulation abilities, humans developed something else entirely. We learned to think creatively, to adapt rapidly, and to survive against impossible odds. These traits served us well on Earth, and they serve us well now. Different. War Chief Stone Render stood again, his massive frame dwarfing everyone around him. Your species is weak, small, short-lived. You have no natural defenses, no inherent weapons, no special abilities. What could you possibly offer that justifies your continued independence? General Kane finally spoke, his voice quiet but carrying clearly through the chamber. We offer uncertainty. The statement hung in the air for a moment, puzzling many of the assembled delegates. The Nexary delegate's energy form flickered with confusion. Explain. Kane stood slowly, his movements economical and precise. Every species in this galaxy follows predictable patterns. The Krillians respond to threats with overwhelming force. The Valdorians seek to absorb and control. The Nexary analyze and calculate. The Saurians form complex hierarchies and follow rigid protocols. You are all magnificent in your own ways, but you are also predictable, and humans are not. The Saurian representative scales had shifted to a curious yellow-green. When cornered, most species fight or flee according to their nature. Kane continued. Humans do both, or neither, or something completely unexpected. We have a saying on Earth. Desperate people do desperate things. But we have another saying, too. Human ingenuity knows no bounds. The galaxy benefits from having at least one species that doesn't fit the established patterns. The Zephyrian delegate's antennae twitched with what might have been amusement. You claim unpredictability as a virtue? Chaos is not strength, human. It is a flaw to be corrected. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her tablet for the first time since the session began. Her voice was soft, almost conversational. With respect, delegate, chaos, and creativity are often indistinguishable. The innovations that have emerged from human laboratories in the past 50 years have revolutionized medical treatment, manufacturing, and energy production throughout the galaxy. Our chaotic approach to problem-solving has yielded results that centuries of methodical research by other species could not achieve. Results that you refuse to share completely, Zethkar pointed out. You give us pieces, fragments, enough to whet our appetites, but never enough to truly understand your methods. This is not cooperation. This is manipulation. Dr. Chen's expression hardened slightly. We share what we can safely share. Our research often involves concepts and methodologies that could be dangerous if misapplied. We have seen what happens when advanced technology falls into the wrong hands. Earth's history is littered with examples of good intentions leading to catastrophic results. So you appoint yourselves the guardians of galactic safety? The Nexary delegates' form pulsed brighter. Who gave humans the authority to decide what the rest of us can handle? The same authority that allows the Valdorians to decide which worlds need integration, Kane replied. The same authority that lets the Krillians determine which conflicts require their intervention. The same authority that permits the Nexary to classify entire fields of research as too dangerous for lesser species. Every civilization in this chamber makes decisions based on their own judgment. Why should humanity be different? The chamber fell silent for a long moment. Finally, The council speaker rose from his seat. His species, the Eternals, were among the oldest in the galaxy, and his words carried the weight of millennia of experience. The issue before us is not whether humanity has the right to independence. The issue is whether that independence is compatible with galactic security. Your species has grown tremendously in power over the past century. Your population expands rapidly. Your technology advances at an unprecedented rate. Your military capabilities increase daily. This trajectory cannot continue unchecked. Dr. Chun felt her pulse quicken, but her voice remained steady. What are you suggesting, Speaker? The Council has deliberated extensively on this matter. We have prepared a comprehensive proposal for humanity's integration into the Galactic Collective. You will be required to share all military technologies developed in the past 50 years. You will accept joint oversight of your research facilities. You will participate in coordinated defense initiatives under Council authority. You will limit your population growth to sustainable levels as determined by Council economists. In return, you will receive full access to the collective knowledge of all member species and guaranteed protection under the Galactic Defense Compact. The human delegation exchanged glances. Dr. Chen's expression remained neutral, but her mind was racing. The terms weren't an offer of cooperation. They were demands for surrender. And if we decline these generous terms? The speaker's ancient eyes fixed on her with unmistakable intensity. Then, humanity will be classified as a potential threat to galactic peace. Economic sanctions will be imposed immediately. Trade routes will be restricted. Access to council-controlled space will be limited. If these measures prove insufficient to encourage compliance, more direct action may be necessary. Direct action? General Kane's voice was dangerously quiet. War Chief Stonerender's laugh was like grinding stone. Your cute little worlds would be blockaded first, then occupied. Your military would be dismantled. Your leaders would be replaced with council-approved administrators. Your species would learn to cooperate whether you wish to or not. Dr. Chun stood slowly, her movements deliberate. Around her, the other delegates watched with a mixture of anticipation and unease. Some seemed uncomfortable with the ultimatum being delivered, while others nodded approvingly. Speaker, honored delegates, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. Humanity appreciates the Council's concern for galactic stability. We understand the desire for predictability and order. However, we must respectfully decline your proposal. The chamber erupted again, but Dr. Chun continued speaking over the noise. We decline not out of arrogance or hostility, but because we believe that diversity of thought and approach makes the galaxy stronger, not weaker. We will not surrender our independence, nor will we submit to external control of our sovereign territories. Then you have chosen war, Zethkar declared, his 6 eyes blazing with anger. No, Dr. Chen replied calmly. We have chosen to remain free. What happens next is entirely up to you. As the human delegation began to gather their materials, the speaker raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Chun, before you leave, perhaps you would care to explain why your government believes 3 worlds and a few 100,000 ships can stand against the combined might of 47 civilizations? Dr. Chun paused at the entrance to the chamber. When she turned back, her smile was enigmatic. Speaker, you're operating under a fundamental misunderstanding. You see 3 worlds and assume weakness. You count our ships and believe you understand our capabilities. You measure us by your own standards and find us lacking. But you're forgetting something important. And what is that? The speaker asked. We're human, Dr. Chun said simply. We don't fight the way you expect us to fight. We don't surrender when logic says we should surrender. We don't give up when mathematics proves we cannot win. Throughout our history, humans have faced impossible odds and found impossible solutions. Today is no different. With that, the human delegation left the chamber. Behind them, the representatives of 47 alien civilizations sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had just occurred. In the depths of space, monitoring stations throughout the galaxy began detecting unusual energy signatures as human ships started moving into new formations. Defense platforms that had seemed dormant suddenly powered up. Manufacturing facilities that had appeared to be producing civilian goods revealed their true purpose as weapons began rolling off assembly lines. The galactic leaders had demanded cooperation and been refused. They had threatened war and been defied. Now, they would discover what humanity had been preparing for during all those years of seeming isolation. The humans were going to show them what 300 years of constant warfare, innovation, and the absolute refusal to surrender had produced. They were about to learn why humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers, but their complete inability to accept defeat. In the council chamber, as the delegates began to discuss mobilization plans and force deployments, none of them noticed the small monitoring device that Dr. Vasquez had quietly attached to the underside of the council table. None of them realized that every word spoken in the chamber for the past 6 months had been transmitted back to Earth. None of them understood that the humans had been prepared for this moment since the day they first made contact with alien life. The galaxy was about to discover why isolation had never made humanity weak. It had made them ready. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood in the command center of Fortress Prime, humanity's most classified military installation hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The massive chamber hummed with activity as hundreds of technicians and officers coordinated what would soon become the largest military operation in human history. Holographic displays showed the positions of every human asset throughout known space, each one now glowing with active status indicators. "Ma'am, we're receiving final confirmations from the outer colonies," reported Commander Zhang, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to undertake. New Geneva, Kepler Station, and the Tau Ceti settlements all report ready status. The orbital manufacturing platforms are at full capacity. Torres nodded, her eyes scanning the tactical displays that surrounded her. Each screen told a different part of the story that humanity had been carefully writing for the past 70 years. What the galactic community had seen as stubborn independence had actually been the most elaborate military preparation in the history of any known species. "What's the status on Project Prometheus?" she asked. "All reactors are online and stable," replied Dr. James Mitchell, the lead scientist on humanity's most secret energy project. "We've got enough power generation capacity to maintain full defensive screens around all 3 home worlds for approximately 18 months of continuous bombardment. The overflow systems can support our mobile fleets indefinitely." Torres allowed herself a brief smile. The Galactic Council thought they understood human technology based on the limited information humanity had chosen to share. They had no idea that every piece of equipment, every technological breakthrough that had been demonstrated was already 3 generations behind what humanity actually possessed. "Sir, incoming priority transmission from Earth Command," announced Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "President Martinez is requesting an immediate briefing on operational readiness." "Put her through on the secure channel," Torres replied, moving to the central command console. The holographic image of President Elena Martinez materialized before her, the weight of leadership evident in every line of the woman's face. "Admiral, I've just finished reviewing the council proceedings. They've given us exactly what we expected, an ultimatum disguised as negotiation. Are we ready to proceed?" "Madam President, humanity has never been more ready for anything," Torres replied with conviction. "Operation Defiance is prepared to launch on your command. However, I must emphasize that once we begin, there will be no turning back. The galaxy will never view us the same way again." President Martinez nodded grimly. "Admiral, 70 years ago, when we first made contact with alien civilizations, my predecessor faced a choice. We could reveal our true capabilities and risk being destroyed as a threat, or we could appear weak and controllable while secretly preparing for this exact moment. Every president since then has maintained that deception. Today, it ends. The weight of history hung in the air between them. Humanity had spent nearly a century building the most sophisticated military machine the galaxy had ever seen, all while convincing everyone else that they were a minor, backward species barely worthy of attention. The deception worked better than we ever imagined, Torres continued. They see our ships as primitive because we use projectile weapons instead of energy beams. They don't realize that our kinetic penetrators can punch through their shields like paper. They think our defensive platforms are weak because they're built into asteroids instead of gleaming metal stations. They have no idea that we can move entire mountains to block their attacks. Dr. Mitchell stepped forward, his excitement barely contained. Madam President, if I may, the technological disparity is even greater than our military advantages. While the galactic species have focused on refining existing technologies for thousands of years, humans have been innovating at an exponential rate. Our quantum processors operate at computational speeds that would require their most advanced systems to work in parallel for decades to match. Our materials science has produced alloys that are literally impossible according to their physics models. Show me the fleet positions, Martinez requested. The central display shifted to show the entire local galactic arm. Thousands of icons appeared, each representing a human vessel or installation. The galaxy leaders thought humanity possessed perhaps a few hundred ships total. The reality was staggering. Over 50,000 combat vessels of various classes, supported by twice that number in logistics and support craft. My God, Martinez whispered. Even knowing the numbers, seeing them all together is overwhelming. Commander Zhang manipulated the display controls, zooming in on specific regions. The Council species maintain a combined fleet of approximately 200,000 vessels, but they're spread across dozens of star systems and maintain different command structures. Our intelligence indicates that coordinating a unified response will take them at minimum 6 weeks. By then, Phase 1 of Operation Defiance will be complete. Explain Phase 1 to the President, Torres ordered. Zhang nodded and began highlighting specific fleet positions. Ma'am, for the past 50 years, human merchant vessels have been mapping every major trade route, military installation, and strategic resource in Council space. What appeared to be normal commercial traffic was actually the most comprehensive intelligence-gathering operation in galactic history. We know the location of every major fleet, every defensive platform, every command center, and every supply depot. Our merchant captains deserve medals, Dr. Mitchell added. They spent decades being treated as second-class citizens by alien port authorities, all while gathering the information we needed to plan this operation. Captain Sarah Chun alone, Ambassador Chen's sister, mapped 17 star systems while pretending to trade in agricultural products. President Martinez studied the display carefully. What's our first move? Admiral Torres stepped to the tactical console and began entering commands. The display shifted to show a series of red indicators scattered throughout the galaxy. Simultaneous strikes on their communication networks. In approximately 6 hours, every major hyperspace communication relay in Council space will suffer what appears to be a cascade system failure. Their ability to coordinate responses will be reduced to light-speed transmissions, effectively crippling any unified response. Won't they know we're responsible? Martinez asked. Not immediately. Dr. Mitchell replied with obvious pride. The failures will appear to be caused by a previously unknown quantum resonance effect. Our xenobiologists developed a computer virus based on the way certain Earth bacteria attack cellular structures. To their organic-based computer systems, it will look like a natural phenomenon rather than sabotage. Commander Zhang continued the briefing. While their communications are down, our second wave will target their logistics networks. Every major fuel depot, ammunition storage facility, and supply convoy will experience simultaneous equipment failures. Nothing explosive, nothing obviously hostile, just mechanical breakdowns and system malfunctions that prevent them from resupplying their fleets. How long will this give us? Martinez inquired. Conservative estimate, 3 weeks before they can restore even basic coordination, Torres replied. Optimistic estimate. 2 months before they can mount any sort of unified response. During that time, we implement Phase 2. The display changed again, now showing dozens of green indicators moving throughout space. Phase 2 is where we reveal our true capabilities. While the Council fleets are blind and struggling to communicate, our rapid response units will begin what we're calling demonstration strikes. Not attacks intended to cause casualties, but displays of power designed to show them exactly what they're facing. Dr. Mitchell's eyes gleamed with anticipation. We're going to drop asteroids out of hyperspace directly onto their doorsteps. Not to destroy their worlds, but to prove that we can deliver planet-killing kinetic strikes from anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Imagine their reaction when they detect massive asteroids materializing in their home systems with enough velocity to crack continents. The psychological impact should be devastating, Zhang added. Every species in the Council maintains their primary military installations on or near their homeworlds. The realization that humans can threaten those installations should force them to reconsider their position. President Martinez looked thoughtful. And if they don't reconsider? If they interpret these demonstrations as acts of war and respond accordingly? Admiral Torres's expression grew serious. Then, we proceed to Phase 3, ma'am. Full military engagement, using our actual capabilities instead of the limited technology we've shown them so far. Every simulation we've run suggests that the galactic fleets cannot effectively counter our tactical advantages. Explain those advantages to me one more time, Martinez requested. Speed, stealth, and unpredictability, Torres replied immediately. Our ships can jump in and out of hyperspace with precision they consider impossible. Our weapons can penetrate their defenses using principles they don't understand. Our defensive systems can absorb punishment that would destroy their most powerful vessels. But, most importantly, we fight in ways they cannot predict or counter. Commander Zhang pulled up a tactical simulation. Their military doctrine is based on large fleet engagements with predictable formations and strategies. They've been fighting the same way for thousands of years because it works against opponents who think similarly. But human tactics evolved through centuries of warfare against other humans, opponents who were equally creative, equally desperate, and equally willing to break every rule to achieve victory. Show her the Wolfpack simulations, Dr. Mitchell suggested. The display showed a series of battle scenarios where small groups of human ships engaged much larger alien fleets. In every simulation, the human forces emerged victorious through hit-and-run tactics, coordinated strikes, and the systematic dismantling of enemy command structures. We don't fight their kind of war, Torres explained. We don't line up our ships and exchange broadsides until one side retreats. We identify their weaknesses, exploit them ruthlessly, and disappear before they can respond. By the time they figure out how to counter one tactic, we've already shifted to something completely different. President Martinez studied the simulations for several minutes. When she finally spoke, her voice was firm with decision. Admiral, you have my authorization to begin Operation Defiance. However, I want absolute clarity on our objectives. This is not a war of conquest. We are not seeking to destroy or dominate the galactic community. We are demonstrating that humanity cannot be forced into submission. Is that understood? Completely understood, ma'am, Torres replied. Our goal is to force them to accept humanity as an equal partner rather than a subject species. We want mutual respect, not galactic domination. Good, because once this begins, the entire galaxy will be watching to see what kind of species we really are. We need to show them that humans can be trusted with power, even when that power is overwhelming. As President Martinez's image faded, Admiral Torres turned to address the command center. All stations, this is Admiral Torres. Operation Defiance is authorized and approved. Begin Phase 1 immediately. Throughout the command center, dozens of officers began implementing plans that had been years in the making. Across the galaxy, human agents who had spent decades posing as merchants, researchers, and diplomats received encrypted signals and began moving into position. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, the galactic representatives continued their discussions of how to handle the human problem, completely unaware that the problem was already solving itself. They planned invasions and blockades while human infiltrators prepared to disable their ability to coordinate either. On Earth, in cities from New York to Tokyo to Lagos, citizens watched emergency broadcasts as their leaders explained that humanity was about to reveal its true strength to the galaxy. There was no panic, no fear, only quiet pride that their species had been preparing for this moment since the day they learned they were not alone in the universe. In the asteroid belt, massive mining operations that had appeared to be extracting minerals for civilian use suddenly revealed their true purpose as weapons manufacturing facilities. Asteroids that had been hollowed out over decades were transformed into mobile battle stations, or refineries became ammunition factories. The entire human presence in space shifted from a mining and exploration operation into the most sophisticated military machine any species had ever created. The galactic leaders thought they were forcing humanity to choose between submission and destruction. They had no idea they had actually triggered the activation of a force that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The humans were no longer hiding. The galaxy was about to discover what 3 centuries of human ingenuity, desperation, and the absolute refusal to surrender had created. High Admiral Keth Moore of the Valdorian Imperial Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance, watching with growing unease as his communication officers struggled to establish contact with Fleet Command. What had begun as routine preparation for the human suppression campaign had quickly devolved into chaos as one system after another reported critical failures. "Sir, we've lost contact with the tertiary command hub," reported communications specialist Veltar, his 6 eyes dimming with concern. "That's the 5th major communication node to go offline in the past 2 hours. The hyperspace relay network appears to be experiencing a cascade failure." Keth Moore's mandibles clicked together in agitation. In his 200 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. Hyperspace communication technology had been reliable for over a millennium. The chances of simultaneous failures across multiple star systems were astronomically small. "What about the backup systems?" he demanded. "Also failing, sir. Whatever is causing this appears to affect all quantum-entangled communication arrays regardless of manufacturer or design specifications." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of vessels and installations. The carefully coordinated military machine of the Galactic Council was being systematically blinded, one communication hub at a time. What the aliens didn't know was that each failure had been precisely engineered to look like a natural system breakdown rather than sabotage. On the bridge of the Krillian dreadnought Stone's Vengeance, War Chief Gromtar was having his own problems. His chief engineer, a massive warrior named Skullbreaker, approached with obvious reluctance. "War Chief, our fuel processing systems have shut down. The quantum refineries are showing critical errors in their molecular assembly matrices." "Fix them," Gromtar growled, his attention focused on the tactical displays that were flickering in and out of functionality. "We cannot, War Chief. The errors appear to be fundamental flaws in the quantum field generators. Our engineers believe the entire fuel processing infrastructure may need to be rebuilt from the ground up." For the first time in decades, Gromtar felt something resembling surprise. Krillian engineering was considered the most robust in the galaxy. Their systems were designed to function under the most extreme combat conditions. The idea that crucial infrastructure could simply stop working was almost incomprehensible. Similar reports were flooding in from across the galactic fleets. Ammunition manufacturing facilities were reporting mysterious contamination in their explosive compounds. Supply convoys were experiencing widespread mechanical failures. Fuel depots were discovering that their stored energy was somehow becoming unstable at the molecular level. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, Speaker Vorthen was trying to make sense of the unprecedented situation. Representatives from dozens of species crowded around communication consoles, desperately trying to contact their home fleets. "This cannot be coincidence," declared Ambassador Zethkar, his 6 eyes blazing with suspicion. These failures began less than 4 hours after the humans departed this chamber. They must be responsible. The Nexuary delegates energy form pulsed with agitated patterns. How could they be responsible? Our intelligence clearly indicates that human technology is decades behind our own capabilities. They lack the knowledge to interfere with our quantum communication networks. Unless they have been deceiving us about their true capabilities, suggested the Saurian representative, her scales shifting to the deep red that indicated alarm among her species. Speaker Vorthen raised his hand for silence, but the gesture seemed inadequate against the growing chaos in the chamber. For the first time in the Council's 1,000-year history, they were facing a situation that none of their vast experience had prepared them for. Meanwhile, light years away in the Sol system, Admiral Torres was monitoring the first phase of Operation Defiance from her command center. Status reports flowed across her screens like water, each one confirming the success of humanity's opening moves. Phase 1 is proceeding exactly as planned, reported Commander Jean. Communication disruption is at 92% effectiveness across all targeted systems. Logistics interference is at 87% and rising. The galactic fleets are effectively blind and unable to coordinate responses. How long before they figure out this isn't natural system failure? Torres asked. Dr. Mitchell consulted his data displays. Conservative estimate, 72 hours before their scientists identify the true cause. However, by then, Phase 2 will already be underway, and they'll have much bigger problems to worry about. As if summoned by his words, an alarm chimed softly through the command center. Lieutenant Kim looked up from her console with excitement barely contained in her voice. "Admiral, we're receiving final positioning reports from the Asteroid Artillery Division. All kinetic projectiles are in position for Phase 2 demonstration strikes." Torres nodded grimly. Phase 2 would be humanity's announcement to the galaxy that the rules of the game had changed permanently. What the aliens thought they knew about human capabilities was about to be shattered as completely as their communication networks. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. Across 12 different star systems, massive asteroids that had been secretly equipped with hyperspace drives and guidance systems began their final approach to their targets. Each asteroid had been carefully selected for maximum psychological impact while minimizing actual damage. The goal was not destruction, but demonstration. On the Valdorian homeworld of Valder Prime, astronomers at the Imperial Observatory were conducting routine scans of their system's outer regions when their sensors detected something impossible. A massive asteroid, roughly 3 kilometers in diameter, had appeared in their system without any prior detection. Moreover, it was moving at a velocity that should have been impossible for any natural object. "Alert the Planetary Defense Command immediately," ordered Chief Astronomer Yeldmar, his voice shaking with disbelief. "We have an incoming kinetic projectile on a direct collision course with the capital city." Within minutes, every defensive system on Valder Prime was tracking the asteroid. Energy weapons capable of vaporizing small moons focused on the approaching object, preparing to destroy it before it could reach the planet. But as the weapons fired, something unprecedented happened. The asteroid stopped. Not gradually, not with any visible means of propulsion, but instantly and completely. One moment it was hurtling toward the planet at devastating velocity. The next it hung motionless in space just outside the atmosphere. For several long minutes, it remained perfectly stationary while the planet's defenders stared in shock. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the asteroid jumped back into hyperspace and vanished. The message was unmistakable. Humanity could deliver planet-killing strikes to any world in the galaxy, and their defensive systems were powerless to stop it. Similar demonstrations were occurring simultaneously across 11 other star systems. On the Krillian military world of Gronder, an asteroid materialized directly above their primary fleet academy, hung motionless for exactly 10 minutes, then vanished. On the Nexari energy mining platforms of Theta Centauri, a massive rock appeared between their orbital collectors and their home star, briefly blocking their primary power source before disappearing. Each demonstration was precisely calculated to cause maximum shock with zero actual damage. The message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere, anytime, with forces that the galactic military infrastructure could neither detect in advance nor defend against. In the council chambers, the reports began flooding in within hours. Representatives who had been arguing about the best way to handle the human problem now sat in stunned silence as they realized the magnitude of what they were facing. 12 separate systems, whispered the Zephyrian delegate, his mandibles chattering with nervous energy. Simultaneous kinetic strikes that bypassed every sensor network and defensive platform. How is this possible? It's not possible, insisted Ambassador Zethkar, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Our intelligence reports clearly indicate that human technology is primitive. They use projectile weapons instead of energy systems. They build their ships from metal instead of energy matrices. They cannot have developed this level of capability without our knowledge. Speaker Vorthan's ancient voice carried a new note of uncertainty. Perhaps our intelligence has been incomplete. The understatement of the millennium hung in the air as each representative grappled with the implications. If humanity possessed the ability to deliver devastating kinetic strikes without warning, then every world in the galaxy was vulnerable. Every military installation, every population center, every strategic resource could be threatened at will. The Saurian representative scales had shifted to a deep purple that indicated fear. We must contact our fleets immediately and coordinate a response. With what? Demanded the Nexari delegate. Our communication networks are still failing. Our supply lines are disrupted. Our intelligence networks appear to have been completely compromised. We cannot even verify the status of our own forces, let alone coordinate an attack on human territory. For the first time in galactic history, the Council found itself facing an opponent that had outmaneuvered them before the first shot was fired. The humans had not simply refused cooperation. They had demonstrated that they possessed the power to enforce their independence against the combined might of 47 alien civilizations. On Earth, President Martinez was receiving reports of the galactic response to Phase 2. Intelligence networks that had been carefully maintained for decades were providing real-time information about the panic spreading through alien governments. Madam President, Admiral Torres reported via secure communication, initial psychological impact assessments indicate complete success. Intelligence sources report widespread panic among galactic leadership. Several species are demanding immediate peace negotiations. What about military responses? Martinez asked. Largely paralyzed, ma'am. With their communication networks disrupted and their supply chains compromised, most fleets are operating in isolation. Those that are attempting to mobilize are discovering that their fundamental assumptions about human capabilities were completely wrong. President Martinez nodded thoughtfully. Any indication that they're preparing to escalate to weapons of mass destruction? Negative, ma'am. Our intelligence suggests they're too confused and disorganized to consider extreme measures. However, we're maintaining full defensive readiness in case the situation changes. As Martinez ended the communication, she reflected on the magnitude of what humanity had achieved. For 70 years, they had successfully convinced the galaxy that they were a minor, backward species while secretly building the most advanced military force in known space. Now, in less than 12 hours, they had demonstrated that they possessed capabilities that rendered the existing balance of power obsolete. But the most remarkable part was that they had done it without firing a single shot in anger. No lives had been lost, no worlds had been damaged, no irreversible acts of war had been committed. They had simply revealed the truth about human preparedness and left the galaxy to decide how to respond. The choice now lay with the galactic leaders. They could accept that humanity was their equal and negotiate new terms for coexistence, or they could continue their attempt to force human submission and discover just how much more devastating humanity's hidden capabilities could be. In the council chambers, as emergency sessions continued through the night, one thing had become painfully clear to every species present. The humans they had dismissed as primitive and controllable had outplayed them at every level. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. 3 days after the asteroid demonstrations, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session unlike any in their 1,000-year history. The massive chamber that had once echoed with confident pronouncements about human submission now buzzed with frantic whispers and desperate planning. Representatives who had entered the previous meeting certain of their superiority now huddled in small groups, their confidence shattered by the revelation of humanity's true capabilities. Speaker Vorthen stood at the center of the chamber, his ancient frame seeming more fragile than ever before. Around him, the assembled delegates represented the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Yet for the first time in their collective history, they felt genuinely threatened by a species they had considered insignificant. Order! Vorthen's voice cracked slightly as he called for attention. We must address our current situation with clarity and purpose. The events of the past 72 hours have fundamentally altered the balance of power in this galaxy. Ambassador Zethkar of the Valdorian Empire rose from his seat, his 6 eyes burning with a mixture of rage and fear. Altered? Speaker, we have been played for fools. While we debated how to control humanity, they were preparing to threaten every world we hold dear. The asteroid that appeared over Valder Prime carried enough kinetic energy to crack our planet's crust. They could have destroyed our entire civilization with a single strike. But they didn't, pointed out the Nexri delegate, their energy form flickering with nervous patterns. The demonstration was precisely calculated to show capability without causing damage. This suggests they may still be open to negotiation. War Chief Gromtar slammed his massive fist on his table, the sound reverberating through the chamber like thunder. Negotiation? They have made us look weak in front of the entire galaxy. Every minor species we have conquered, every world we have subjugated, every enemy we have defeated now knows that the Council can be outmaneuvered by a single species with barely 3 inhabited worlds. The Krillians' words struck at the heart of the Council's dilemma. For millennia, their authority had been based on the assumption of overwhelming superiority. Now that assumption lay in ruins, and, with it, the foundation of galactic order. We need to understand how they achieved this level of technological advancement, insisted the chief scientist of the Saurian hegemony, her scale shifting through nervous color patterns. Our intelligence indicated that human technology was decades behind our own capabilities. Either our intelligence networks have been completely compromised, or humanity has made breakthrough discoveries that we cannot comprehend. Dr. Yextar, the Council's leading xenotechnology expert, activated a holographic display showing analysis of the recent asteroid demonstrations. Preliminary analysis of the kinetic strikes reveals several disturbing facts. First, the asteroids appear to use some form of hyperspace technology that can achieve precision positioning beyond our current understanding. Second, their guidance systems demonstrated computational power that exceeds our most advanced quantum processors by several orders of magnitude. Third, and most concerning, the propulsion system showed energy signatures that suggest they have solved problems in physics that we considered theoretically impossible. A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't simply hidden their existing technology. They had apparently achieved scientific breakthroughs that put them generations ahead of the rest of the galaxy. How is this possible? Whispered the Zephyrian representative. Our species have been advancing for thousands of years. How could a civilization that achieved space flight barely 3 centuries ago surpass our accumulated knowledge? The answer came from an unexpected source. Counselor Methaz of the Eternal Conclave, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, spoke for the first time in decades. His voice carried the weight of millennia, and when he spoke, the entire chamber fell silent. Because they're different, he said simply. We have spent eons perfecting what we already know, refining existing technologies, improving established methods. Humans approach problems as if no solution has ever been attempted before. Where we see limitations, they see puzzles to solve. Where we accept established facts, they question fundamental assumptions. You're suggesting that their primitive nature is actually an advantage? Zethkar's voice dripped with disbelief. Not primitive, Meth as corrected. Unencumbered. We have become so sophisticated, so advanced, so certain of our methods that we have forgotten how to truly innovate. Humans innovate because they do not yet know what is impossible. The chamber erupted in heated discussions as representatives struggled to process this perspective. The idea that their advancement might actually be limiting their progress was almost incomprehensible to species that had spent millennia viewing technological sophistication as the ultimate measure of civilization. Meanwhile, communications were finally being restored across the galaxy, and the reports flowing and painted an increasingly desperate picture. Fleet Admiral Koreth of the Combined Galactic Forces appeared as a hologram before the assembly, his usually imposing presence diminished by the weight of his reports. "Honored Council," he began, his voice heavy with defeat. "I must report that our military readiness has been compromised beyond our worst projections. The systematic failures in our communication and supply networks have left our fleets operating in complete isolation. Worse, our attempts to counter-analyze human technology have revealed that our fundamental understanding of their capabilities was completely wrong." "Explain," Speaker Vorthen demanded. Koreth activated a series of tactical displays. "We always assumed human ships were inferior because they used projectile weapons and metal construction. We now realize these were deliberate deceptions. Their primitive kinetic weapons can penetrate energy shields that stop our most advanced plasma cannons. Their crude metal hulls are constructed from alloys that are stronger than our energy matrix armor. Their simple rocket propulsion systems can achieve acceleration profiles that our ships cannot match." "But how many ships do they actually possess?" asked the Valdorian representative. "Our intelligence estimated perhaps 300 vessels total." "That intelligence was catastrophically wrong," Koreth replied grimly. "Based on the energy signatures we detected during their demonstrations, we now estimate their active fleet at over 50,000 combat vessels, with production capacity that suggests they can replace losses faster than we can inflict them." The number hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. 50,000 ships represented a force that could challenge the combined fleets of multiple species simultaneously. "Impossible," breathed the Nexari delegate. "The industrial capacity required for such construction would be enormous. We would have detected the energy signatures, the resource consumption, the manufacturing infrastructure. They built it in places we weren't looking," Koreth admitted. "While we monitored their planets and obvious installations, they were converting entire asteroid belts into mobile shipyards. What we thought were mining operations were actually the largest military production facilities ever constructed. They have been preparing for this confrontation since the day they achieved interstellar flight. The reality of humanity's deception was finally becoming clear. For 70 years, they had maintained the facade of being a minor, backward species while secretly building a military force that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every merchant ship, every research expedition, every diplomatic mission had been part of an elaborate intelligence-gathering operation designed to map galactic weaknesses and prepare for exactly this moment. "What are our options?" Speaker Vorthen asked quietly. Fleet Admiral Koreth's expression was grim. "Militarily, our options are extremely limited. Even if we could restore full coordination to our fleets, Engaging humanity in direct combat would be catastrophic. Their technological advantages, combined with their apparent willingness to use unconventional tactics, make victory uncertain at best. You're suggesting surrender? War Chief Gromtar's voice was incredulous. I'm suggesting reality, Koreth replied firmly. Humanity has demonstrated the ability to strike any target in the galaxy without warning. They have shown technological capabilities that we cannot counter with existing methods. They have revealed a military force that we cannot defeat through conventional means. Continuing to threaten them serves no purpose except to invite retaliation that could devastate our civilizations. Ambassador Zeth Kar stood slowly, his expression showing the struggle between pride and pragmatism. Are you all forgetting who we are? We are the Galactic Council. We have maintained peace and order for 1,000 years. We cannot simply bow to the demands of a single species, no matter how advanced they may be. What demands? Asked Counselor Methus quietly. They have made no demands. They have issued no ultimatums. They have not threatened invasion or conquest. They simply refused our ultimatum and demonstrated that they have the power to enforce their refusal. The truth of those words settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Humanity had not acted like aggressors or conquerors. They had acted like a species that refused to be conquered. So what do they want? The Saurian representative asked. If not submission, not territory, not resources, what is their goal? The answer came from an unexpected source. The chamber's communication system activated, and the image of Dr. Sarah Chun appeared before them. The human ambassador looked calm and composed, a stark contrast to the agitation of the alien delegates. Honored representatives, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I hope you will forgive the intrusion, but I believe I can answer your question directly. How are you accessing our secure communications? Speaker Vorthen demanded. The same way we accessed everything else, Dr. Chen replied with a slight smile. We've been monitoring your discussions for quite some time. Please don't take it personally. We monitor everyone's communications as a matter of standard security protocol. The casual admission that humanity had been eavesdropping on the most secure facility in the galaxy sent another wave of shock through the assembled delegates. As for what we want, Dr. Chen continued, it's quite simple. We want to be left alone. We want the right to govern our own worlds according to our own principles. We want to trade with whom we choose, research what we find interesting, and live our lives without external interference. We do not seek to conquer anyone, dominate anyone, or impose our will on anyone. We simply refuse to be conquered, dominated, or controlled ourselves. You could have told us this without the demonstrations, Zethkar accused. Could we? Dr. Chun asked pointedly. 3 days ago, you were planning to invade our worlds and replace our government with council-approved administrators. You were prepared to blockade our trade routes and limit our population growth. You spoke of using direct action to force our compliance. Did that sound like the behavior of beings who would respect a simple request for independence? The chamber fell silent. In the harsh light of recent events, their previous confidence seemed not just misplaced, but almost criminally arrogant. What happens now? Speaker Vorthen asked. Now you decide, Dr. Chen replied. You can accept that humanity is not interested in your collective, but poses no threat to it either. You can treat us as an independent civilization with a right to self-determination. You can establish normal diplomatic and trade relationships based on mutual respect rather than domination. And if we refuse? War Chief Gromtar asked, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. Then, you will discover that the demonstrations you have seen represent only a tiny fraction of humanity's actual capabilities. We have shown you that we can deliver kinetic strikes anywhere in the galaxy. We have not shown you our defensive capabilities, our weapons technology, or our full fleet strength. We prefer not to reveal these things, because once we do, the galaxy will never feel safe again. The threat was delivered so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that was more terrifying than any amount of bluster or posturing could have been. We will need time to consider these developments, Speaker Vorthen said finally. Of course, Dr. Chen replied. Take all the time you need. We're not going anywhere. But please remember that every moment you delay is a moment in which the rest of the galaxy is watching to see how the mighty Galactic Council responds to a challenge it cannot meet with force. As Dr. Chen's image faded, the assembled delegates sat in stunned silence. For the first time in their civilization's history, they had encountered a problem that could not be solved through superior firepower, advanced technology, or political manipulation. They had met humanity, and humanity had changed everything. 6 months after the asteroid demonstrations, the galaxy had settled into a new rhythm. The Galactic Council chambers, once echoing with confident declarations of dominance, now hosted carefully worded discussions about mutual cooperation and respect for sovereign rights. The change had been gradual, but unmistakable. Humanity's refusal to be intimidated had fundamentally altered how galactic politics operated. Dr. Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck of Harmony Station, humanity's first diplomatic facility in neutral space. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering disguised as something more conventional. To alien observers, it appeared to be a simple research platform, but it actually housed some of the most advanced defensive and communication systems humanity had ever built. The quarterly trade reports are in, announced Captain Lisa Park, Chen's new aide and one of the heroes of Operation Defiance. Commerce between human worlds and Council species has increased by 400% since we established the independent trade protocols. Chen nodded thoughtfully. The economic impact of humanity's revelation had been almost as dramatic as the military implications. Once the galaxy realized that humans possessed advanced technology and would trade it freely with anyone who treated them as equals, dozens of species had quietly established bilateral relationships outside the Council framework. Any response from the Council leadership? Chen asked. Speaker Vorthen has requested another meeting. Park replied, consulting her tablet. This will be the 15th time they've asked to clarify the parameters of human independence. I think they're finally beginning to understand that we meant what we said. The past 6 months have been a masterclass in human diplomacy backed by overwhelming strength. Rather than using their revealed capabilities to demand territory or tribute, humanity had done something the galaxy found almost incomprehensible. They had simply continued being themselves, but with the confidence that came from knowing no one could force them to change. Show me the intelligence reports on Council military activities, Chen requested. Park activated a holographic display that showed the current positions and status of galactic fleets. The change from 6 months ago was remarkable. Instead of massive battle groups positioned for invasion and conquest, the various species had reorganized their forces for defensive operations and local security. The era of using military force to compel compliance with Council decisions had ended the day humanity proved it could not be compelled. The Krillian fleets have withdrawn from 3 different star systems they were protecting, Park noted. The Valdorian Empire has canceled their expansion into the Outer Rim territories. Even the Saurian hegemony has started negotiating trade agreements instead of simply demanding tribute from smaller species. It's remarkable, Chun mused. We didn't have to conquer anyone or destroy anything. We just had to prove that conquest and destruction wouldn't work on us. The ripple effects have changed everything. The communications console chimed softly, and the image of President Martinez appeared before them. The leader of humanity looked satisfied, but tired. The past 6 months had been as challenging for human diplomats as they had been for alien ones. Sarah, I wanted to give you a personal update on the Council's latest proposal. They're officially requesting that humanity accept associate membership in the galactic community. Equal voting rights, full diplomatic recognition, and guaranteed sovereignty over human space in exchange for participation in mutual defense agreements and knowledge-sharing programs. Chen raised an eyebrow. That's quite a change from their previous demands for total submission. What's the catch? There isn't one. As far as we can tell, Martinez replied. Our analysts believe they're genuinely trying to find a way to save face while accepting the new reality. They can't admit they were wrong to threaten us, but they can pretend this was always their preferred outcome. What's your inclination? Chen asked. I'm leaning toward acceptance, with modifications, Martinez replied. We'll participate in mutual defense agreements, but only for truly existential threats. We'll share knowledge, but maintain control over our most sensitive research. We'll trade freely, but won't accept any restrictions on who we trade with or what we trade. It was a reasonable position, Chen reflected. Humanity had never wanted to rule the galaxy. They had simply refused to be ruled by it. If the Council was finally ready to accept that principle, there was no reason to continue the standoff. Ma'am, there's been another development you should know about, Park interjected. Intelligence reports indicate that 17 different species have approached human representatives about establishing direct diplomatic relations outside the Council framework. Apparently, our demonstration of independence has inspired others to question whether Council membership is really in their best interests. President Martinez looked thoughtful. That could be problematic. We don't want to be seen as actively undermining the Council's authority. We're not, Chen replied. We're just being ourselves. If other species choose to follow our example, that's their decision. We've always maintained that every civilization has the right to self-determination. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication alert. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim appeared on a secondary channel, her expression tense. Dr. Chun, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Council chambers. Speaker Vorthen is requesting immediate emergency consultation with human leadership. He claims there's a developing crisis that threatens the entire galaxy. Chun and Martinez exchanged glances. What kind of crisis? Martinez asked. Unknown, ma'am. The transmission was highly encrypted and marked with the highest priority codes. However, our monitoring systems have detected unusual energy signatures in the outer galactic rim. It appears to be something completely outside normal space traffic patterns. Chun felt a chill run down her spine. For 6 months, the galaxy had been focused on the implications of humanity's revealed strength. But the universe was a vast place, and there were threats beyond the political maneuvering of established civilizations. Put the speaker through, Martinez ordered. The image of the ancient alien leader appeared before them, and Chun was struck by how much older he seemed than he had 6 months ago. The stress of dealing with humanity's independence had clearly taken its toll on the galactic establishment. President Martinez, Ambassador Chun, Vorthen began without preamble. I come to you not as representatives of species we once sought to control, but as fellow sentient beings facing a common threat. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected signs of an approaching force that defies our understanding of known galactic civilizations. Explain, Martinez said simply. 3 days ago, our sensors detected massive energy discharges near the galactic edge. The signatures suggest ships using technology we have never encountered before. More concerning, these ships appear to be heading toward the galactic core, and their projected course will take them through both Council space and human territory. Chun leaned forward. How large is this force? We estimate several thousand vessels, each one larger than our biggest dreadnoughts. Their energy signatures suggest power generation capabilities that exceed our most advanced systems by orders of magnitude. If these ships are hostile, the combined forces of all galactic civilizations may not be sufficient to stop them. The irony of the situation was not lost on anyone present. 6 months ago, the Council had been preparing to use overwhelming force against humanity. Now they were asking for human help against an even greater threat. What makes you think they're hostile? Chen asked. They have ignored all attempts at communication, Vorthen replied. They have not responded to standard greeting protocols or identification requests. Most concerning, they have destroyed 3 unmanned monitoring stations that were positioned to observe their approach. The destruction was complete and thorough, leaving no debris or evidence of the technology used. Martinez was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. Finally, she spoke. Speaker, humanity will consider assisting in the defense of the galaxy against this unknown threat. However, we will do so as an equal partner, not as a subordinate force following council orders. Our ships will operate under human command, using human tactics and technology. Agreed, Vorthan said immediately. At this point, we are willing to accept any help you can provide. There's one more condition, Chen added. When this crisis is over, assuming we all survive it, the galaxy's political structure will be permanently changed. No more ultimatums, no more force compliance, no more threats of conquest against species that refuse to submit. Every civilization gets to choose its own path. You're asking us to fundamentally alter the way we've governed the galaxy for 1,000 years, Vorthan protested. We're not asking, Martinez replied calmly. We're stating the terms under which humanity will help defend against this threat. You can accept those terms, or you can face the unknown invaders without our assistance. The choice is yours. For several long minutes, Vorthan was silent. Chen could almost see the internal struggle playing out behind his ancient eyes. Everything the council had worked to build was being dismantled by the same species they had once sought to control. Very well, he said finally. I will recommend to the full council that we accept your terms. However, I must ask, can humanity actually make a difference against a force of this magnitude? Chen smiled, and for the first time in months, it wasn't entirely pleasant. Speaker, 6 months ago you thought you understood human capabilities. You were wrong then. Don't make the same mistake about these invaders. What do you mean? Vorthan asked. You've only seen our defensive and demonstration capabilities, Martinez explained. You've never seen what humans can do when we're genuinely angry. And beings who destroy monitoring stations and ignore peaceful communications have a tendency to make us very, very angry. As the communication ended, Chun turned to Captain Park. Contact Admiral Torres immediately. Tell her to begin implementing Protocol Omega. Park's eyes widened. Protocol Omega was humanity's plan for full-scale galactic warfare, the complete revelation of every secret weapon, every hidden capability, every technological breakthrough they had achieved during their decades of isolation. Ma'am, if we implement Omega, there will be no hiding our true capabilities anymore. Every species in the galaxy will know exactly how powerful we really are. Good, Chen replied. It's time this galaxy learned that when humans fight, we don't fight to win. We fight to ensure that our enemies never threaten anyone again. Within hours, human fleets throughout the galaxy began moving into new configurations. Ships that had been disguised as transports revealed themselves as heavy cruisers. Mining stations transformed into weapons platforms. Manufacturing facilities shifted into wartime production. But the most dramatic change was in humanity's approach to the coming battle. For 6 months, they had been content to demonstrate their strength without using it. Now, faced with an alien force that chose destruction over communication, humanity was preparing to show the galaxy why their ancestors had fought their way to the top of Earth's food chain. The unknown invaders were about to discover that there was a significant difference between a species that could defend itself and a species that had evolved to hunt apex predators. They were about to meet humanity at war. And the galaxy was about to learn why some threats should never be awakened. As Chun watched human battle fleets form up in space around Harmony Station, she reflected on how much had changed since that first confrontation in the council chambers. Humanity had sought independence and been forced to prove they deserved it. Now, they would prove something else entirely, that a species that refused to surrender would also refuse to let others be conquered. The real test of human character was about to begin.